Hi, everyone. Wow, I can't believe it. We are on week 5 of this series. So let me welcome everyone. And again, for those who don't know me, my name is Dr. Jeffrey Lee, and I am a naturopathic doctor as well as a registered acupuncturist at Brio Integrative Health Center. And I just want to thank everyone for sharing these videos to their family and their friends. I just got a message this week about one of my patients sharing it with their mom who's up in northern BC, and she's really enjoying these videos and it's cheering her up. So that's great. That makes me really happy. And I know a few of my patients have been sharing it with their colleagues, especially with a lot of them being stuck at home. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I really appreciate that. And we just want to get that message out there to help as many people as possible. So today we are talking about boosting brain power, and I'm going to be sharing with you 3 health tips that you can do to really upregulate your brain health, and so you can have more mental clarity, more focus, and have less memory issues. Okay, so that's the goal for today. And I really love helping people feel better through as much natural support, as much natural support as possible. And that's why I'm actually really excited to share this Wisdom of Chinese Medicine series. And my goal is I hope that I usually try to share about 3 or 4 health tips per week. And I hope that you can just choose one and just try to do it on a consistent basis. Try to do it every single day, and hopefully, as we journey together over the next 6 weeks, there, you can really up level your health there. So before we dive into more details on this topic, and this one is actually a favorite of mine, so I'm quite excited to talk about that. I'd like to do just a couple of housekeeping things, and I'm just going to remind everyone of the Brio Bingo, and this is just a fun activity that we are doing with our Brio family. So share this with your friends if they're interested, but do this with your family, with your friends, do it with your neighbors there. I'll just share with you a couple of things that I just recently did this week. So under the B category, there's one that says, check in with an elderly neighbor or an older friend. And I have several patients in my practice who are in their 90s. And I had a chance to check in with one of my patients. She's 95. And it was great just chatting with her. I gave her a call and she said, how are you doing? Are you doing okay with groceries? How's your mood? So it was really nice just checking in with her, and she's doing really well. She's keeping safe indoors, and she's got people around her that can get her what she needs there. So that's excellent. And then the second thing that I did this week on the Brio Bingo is do a 60-second plank. And I actually did this with my daughter. She actually ended up challenging me for this. And so this is my younger one. She's 12 now. And man, she beat me this time. So it was pretty funny because I was trying to pull like a dad move where while she wasn't looking, I kind of dropped my knees down, but she totally caught me and we did it for real. And I think I did like a 50-second plank and she ended up doing like a 60-second plank. So she's getting stronger, day by day. So that was a little bit of a fun thing that we did. So if you need a Brio Bingo card, just look back at some of our older posts. We have some links there, or just reach out to us and we'll make sure you get it there. Another thing we just did yesterday is we had a virtual detox, a group detox webinar. Dr. Vanessa and I yesterday we had several people on our webinar, and I just want to extend an invite to all of you out there who are maybe interested in doing a detox. You want to learn a little bit more. I am gonna be sending out the webinar. We've uploaded it to YouTube, and so I'll get it out for everyone to be able to view it. And especially if you're not in some good habits right now, health habits, or you're noticing some weight gain, that what we're calling the quarantine bulge there, or you're just not feeling very good. This is a great time to do a detox. And the exciting part of this is both myself and Dr. Vanessa, we're going to come alongside. We are going to do this as well. And we're going to try to make it interactive and fun and answer your questions kind of in real time as we're doing this 10-day detox together. Some of you, I think, are interested in the longer one, the 28-day detox. And stay tuned. We are probably going to announce more information about that. So I just wanted to mention that. And again, the last thing we're going to do before we get started, I like to do a recap of what we talked about last week. So last week's topic was building energy and stamina. And we talked about a couple of my favorite herbs, ginseng and gynostemma. And we also talked about different acupressure points, like kidney 1 on the bottom of our foot, large intestine 4 here, and then gallbladder 20 just behind the neck there. And those are great acupuncture points where you can just self-massage and just really kind of get that energy flowing in the body there. And then lastly, we talked about mitochondria. And mitochondria is the little energy factories in all of our cells there. And very simple things like nutrition, even detoxification, hydration, all of that can improve mitochondria. So please check back at last week's part 4 to learn more. And in my summary today, I will put a link to that recap there. Okay, let's get started. I'm actually really excited to share about this topic. And for those of you who are been patients of mine for many years, you'll notice that I've been really interested in this topic about brain health, and I've been spending the past 3 years actually doing a lot of research. I've traveled all around North America, attending a lot of conferences, a lot of different courses, and it's all around the topic of brain health, mental health, mindfulness. This is something I'm really interested in studying. And one of the reasons why I'm so interested in this health topic is because it's very near and dear to my heart, because I have got a lot of family members who are suffering from brain issues. So my grandmother, before she passed away, her last few years, she had dementia, and that was really difficult to witness that. I've got family members who've got memory issues, mental health issues in my family, and even learning disabilities. So all that's really tied into the brain. And so in my research and in my training, I've learned a lot both from Western medicine side of studying the brain, but also the Chinese medicine side. And I'm actually quite happy to announce here that I've put a lot of that information together in a very interactive, hands-on course. And I want to make it very practical and make it very user-friendly. And so I'm going to be launching this brain health course sometime this month. For those of you who have any idea of what it's like to prepare for a course or prepare for that, it's a lot of work. But I'm just putting the finishing touches on it. And I invite you to just stay tuned. I'd love to share more about this as soon as I'm ready to release it. And again, like I said, I want it to be hands-on. I want it to be interactive. I want people to be able to, take in this information and be able to apply it. Just today I was going over some of the material and I came across, that quote, you hear something, you might forget, you see something, you'll remember. But when you do something, you really understand, you really retain that. And I'm really trying to integrate that together in a very practical course there. So I just came across, I was reminded of that today when I was doing a bit of writing there. And this course is going to be for young and old, and the goal is to really help people optimize their brain health, to really be proactive and prevent any issues down the road. So that's the reason why I'm so excited about this particular topic there. Now, like I do in all my the series here, I always like to start off my talk with some assessment questions there. And again, I invite you to, at the end of this, I'm going to summarize everything on our blog, and I'll add more questions. And hopefully you can use these questions just to prompt or just to assess how you're actually doing with your brain health. So here's 5 questions here. Number 1, do you find yourself forgetting material that you've just read? Number 2, do you often lose your train of thought in a conversation with other people? Number 3, Is it getting harder for you to learn a new task? Whether it's a new task at home, a new task at work. Number 4, do you feel that you're not as sharp as you once were? And number 5, do you have a family history of any mental illness? So some things for you to think about. Now, I'd like to start this discussion with contrasting how Chinese medicine and Western medicine view the brain. So let's start with Western medicine first. And I'm gonna ask for your permission. I'm gonna geek out just a little bit there, but not too much there. So in Western medicine, the brain is the control center for the entire body. And I'm going to break the brain down into 3 parts there. Of course, the brain's way more complex than this, but I like to teach this to my patients there. The 3 parts that I'm going to talk about is the cortex, the cerebellum, and the brainstem. Again, you don't have to remember any of this, but think of it this way. The cortex is like the CEO of the entire brain. And what the CEO does, it has to take in all of this information that the body senses, whether we see something, we feel something, or even our emotions. It's got to process all of this. So it's the executive functioning of the brain. And it's really important for the decision making. So that's what the cortex does. And that's that wrinkly layer on the outside of the brain that we all see. So that's the CEO of the brain. Now, the other structure that I'm going to talk about is the cerebellum. The cerebellum is the chief operating officer. It's the COO. And the responsibility of the COO is to relay the message from the CEO down to the body. And the cerebellum is actually fascinating. This is where our learning, this is where things are processed when it comes to learning, our emotions, our movements, and our coordination. And the third structure is the brainstem. And the brainstem is kind of like the managers that we see in a company. And the brainstem is really interesting because it is responsible for a lot of these autonomic nervous system functions. And what does that mean? It's kind of like the vital center. So things like heartbeat or breathing or digestion, we don't really have to think about it. It just happens. So the brainstem is a really important part of the brain that regulates all of that. So I just wanted to share with you that in Western medicine, and this is actually very current neuroscience, these are a lot of recent discoveries that we know that the cortex, the cerebellum, and the brainstem, they're just very important parts of the brain. Now, I'm going to contrast that to Chinese medicine. And, Chinese medicine, to my surprise, that the brain organ is actually not really talked about at all in the Chinese medicine literature. In fact, it's not one of those key organs that we learn about in Chinese medicine. So in Chinese medicine, you learn about, the heart system, the liver, the spleen, the lung, the kidney. Those are called zong organs in Chinese medicine. And there's also other organs like gallbladder, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, the bladder. We call those fu organs. So in all of those organ systems, I never once mentioned the brain. So it's very interesting where the brain as an individual organ system is not taught about in Chinese medicine. Now, how things like emotions or happiness, anger, fear, grief, melancholy, frustration, all of those emotions are all dispersed into all the different organ systems in Chinese medicine. Like, for example, the lung, the emotion that's attached to it is grief. The kidney, the emotion that's attached to it is fear. For spleen, it's worry. So it's very interesting how when I was learning Chinese medicine, all these organ systems have different emotions or parts of the mind is actually spread out throughout the whole body. And why is that important? This is important because from the Chinese medicine perspective, diseases, all different diseases in the body, it's actually regarded as an entire systemic problem. It involves the whole body rather than involving individual organs there. So it's a very holistic approach there. And I want to, tie these two together because as a naturopathic doctor, I'm really looking for the bridge often of, a lot of modern day medicine, modern day research, as well as the wisdom of Chinese medicine, the wisdom of Ayurvedic medicine. I'm really trying to bridge that and make it relevant for my patients there. So, what I've observed actually in a lot of my research over the past few years is modern day science is finally now actually catching up on this holistic model in treating the brain. And I'll give you an example. The digestive system. We now know that the digestive system is like a second brain. Neurotransmitters, such as like serotonin, that when I was in naturopathic medical school, we learned that it's the brain that makes these neurotransmitters. Now we know that the digestive tract actually makes a lot of our serotonin in our body. We also know that inflammation in the gut it causes inflammation in the brain as well, and we know that the microbiome, the bacteria in our digestive system, that influences so many parts of our body, influences our immune system. There's research that shows that an imbalance in the microbiome, there's a connection with Alzheimer's. So again, what's very exciting to me is this holistic approach that naturopaths are trained in. It's showing this improvement in a lot of brain issues there. So, my patients who come to see me and they complain of like, losing mental sharpness or having some, brain dysfunction. I always remind them it's not necessarily a decline in the brain itself. Think of it this way: there's a lot of physiological changes in our body, things like hormonal changes, our impact on stress or from stress, our reactions to environmental toxins, how our immune system works. All of that has an impact on the brain. So how I approach, helping my patients with brain issues is I like that TCM approach where I'm really trying to balance the entire system. It's a very holistic approach. And again, I really appreciate this ancient wisdom that comes from Chinese medicine, that when things are in balance, you end up with that clarity of mind. You end up with that sharpness in memory. And you end up with that peace of mind there. And I've really witnessed that over especially the past few years when I've focused more on brain health there. Okay, so I hope that was a good sort of introduction to that. And now I want to move into just talking about, again, more practical tips on boosting brain health. Now, the first one that I'm going to share with you, so the three actually I'm going to share, let me quickly summarize it. So we're going to talk about exercising your brain. We're going to talk about nutritional support for the brain. And we're going to talk about organizing space to organize the mind. Okay, so first one, let's talk about exercising your brain. It's really true when they say use it or lose it. And when I'm talking about exercising your brain, I'm actually talking about both physical exercise as well as mental exercise. And let me first talk about physical exercise. We already know that physical exercise, getting out there for cardio or weight resistance, that increases blood flow to the brain. So number one, that's actually very important. But last month, I was interviewed by somebody, and I was just sharing with them that the topic was on movement and how movement actually enhances brain health. And I was just talking to them about some of the newer research on how complex movements actually helps the brain learn and actually helps the connection of what I talked about earlier from the cortex to a part called the hippocampus in the brain. So complex movements are very important. And I was just talking about a story about I get some of my best ideas when I'm riding my bike. So I love, going on the dike and just going on a nice 30-minute ride there. And this actually helps my brain, relax my brain. But I get really creative around that time and I come up with great ideas. And I was also sharing in this interview that I get the best ideas when I'm in the shower as well. And I don't know if you can relate to this, but I figured out for me, this is where in the shower I'm relaxed. My parasympathetic nervous system is engaged, so I'm just kind of calm and relaxed. I've got water on me. It's therapeutic there. but also just the movement of my hands and all that, that's also very powerful at stimulating my brain there. So I just wanted to really encourage you that physical movement is very, very important for the brain. And one last thing that I want to share with you about physical movement is, in the past few years, the something called BDNF is becoming a lot more popular in mainstream. So BDNF stands for brain derived neurotrophic factor. And the exciting thing is, you don't actually need to take a supplement or a medication to produce BDNF. You can actually do it yourself. Your body's chemistry can produce BDNF. And you really get more BDNF when you exercise. So when you're doing some weight resistance, or when you're doing something called high intensity exercise or high intensity training, when you have a lot of exertion, you're going to release a lot of BDNF. What does BDNF do? It repairs the brain. It helps the brain learn. It regulates mood. And this is something that's actually very, very exciting in modern day neuroscience. So I just wanted to mention that to you about physical exercise. Now let's talk about mental exercise. And so it is true that things like crossword puzzles, playing chess, memorizing things like memorizing lists, or memorizing poetry, or memorizing songs, or memorizing the Bible, or the scripture, that really helps exercise the brain. And in fact, the one of the best things you can do is actually learn something new. Learn something new regularly. That is so important at helping the brain stay young, stay sharp there. And some of the things that I really encourage my patients to do is actually learn how to dance, for example. I am terribly uncoordinated, but it's something that, as I'm learning different exercises to work on coordination, that's sharpening my brain there. And research really shows that when you can do the physical exercise as well as mental exercise, but the cool thing is if you can practice this every single day at the same time, this does wonders for your brain. And I'm going to say it again one more time because it's very important. You practice the same thing at the same time daily. So consistency, repetition, that's very important for the brain to learn and to adapt and to grow and develop there. And in neuroscience, one common saying that we have is when the neural pathways, so those are the brain cells, when they fire together, so when there's that repetition and it keeps firing, when those neural pathways fire together, they wire together. And when you have something that wires together, it's locked into your memory there, and it becomes a lot easier. So that's the first tip. Exercise your brain. Okay. Secondly, you know that I love to share about nutritional support. And I'm going to share about three things today. We're going to talk about microalgae. We're going to talk about ginkgo biloba, and we're going to talk about goji berries. Okay, so microalgae, you probably heard me say this in different talks there. I love microalgae. And what is microalgae? It's things like blue-green algae, spirulina, seaweed, chlorella. Those are examples of microalgae. And microalgae, they are single-celled organisms, or their plant. Seaweed is like the plant of the sea, and these are very easy for us to digest. And why is that important? Because that really unlocks those nutrients very efficiently for us. Microalgae is high in protein. Protein is very important for the body to repair and to take those nutrients those amino acids, so we can form new proteins there. So microalgae is easy to absorb. There's plenty of trace minerals there. So those are really key nutrients for the brain. And my patients probably heard me talk a lot about green light. Green light is an herbal formula that it's an herbal tincture that has things like the chlorella, spirulina, dehydrated wheatgrass, alfalfa sprouts. It's a concentrated tincture that's a combination of microalgae as well as some green supplements supplements. And I've talked about the green light for boosting immune system. I've talked about it to regulating your pH. And the other added benefit of something like green light is it's excellent for the brain. It really fuels the brain. So that's something that I do take on a daily basis, my green light with a microalgae. Secondly, ginkgo biloba. Now, ginkgo is really interesting. It sort of fell out of favor, maybe recently, the past 10 years, but I can say about 20, 25 years ago is a very common herb to improve brain health. And I think the reason why it fell out of favor is because there's a few research studies that came out that was calling it a placebo. It didn't really work. Now, some of that research was actually flawed there. So if you kind of look at some of the good literature that's out there, ginkgo is a phenomenal herb. It's helpful at improving circulation in the brain. And it improves learning, it improves thinking, retention, recall, and it just helps with brain processing. And primarily, it's because of that microcirculation in the brain there. And ginkgo has been used for thousands of years in Chinese medicine, and it's a real proactive approach in Asia that they use for slowing down, memory or cognitive decline, and it's really important at protecting against memory loss there. So very easy to take, often ginkgo, and you do have to get a high quality ginkgo. So just be careful when you're going out there. You're getting it from health food stores. Make sure it is a reputable quality. And if you have questions, just reach out to us there. And thirdly, I want to talk about goji berries. Goji berries are something that are very easy to source now these days. You can buy them from, I think I even saw it locally at Save On Foods. You can get them at a lot of different stores, a lot of the Chinese grocery stores you can get it. But goji berries are also called wolfberries. They're these tiny orange reddish berries. They have a nice sweet taste to it, and historically it's very good for vision. It's very good for the brain, and it's high in vitamin A. It's got a lot of trace minerals, so again, very good for brain. And in culinary, in Chinese cooking, it is actually used in a lot of soups, a lot of different stews, and even a lot of desserts there. So it's a very simple thing to have. You can buy it. You can put in a bit of water and hydrate it again, or sometimes I'll mix it with a bit of my trail mix, and I'll enjoy it with maybe some seeds and some nuts there. So to recap the nutritional support: microalgae, ginkgo biloba, and goji berries there. And lastly, before I wrap up, I want to talk about something that this is something that I'm personally working on a lot. And it may seem like something that's just very common sense there, but it's not. I don't know if it's common practice, because when I ask friends or patients, it's like, oh yeah, this makes sense. I don't always do it. But point number 3 is this: an organized space leads to an organized mind. And so Chinese medicine has this saying that if your house is organized, your mind is organized. And it's really like you have less anxiety or less energy loss if you're searching for things, if you constantly misplace things. This is something that I'm working on a lot. I don't know if you can relate, if you misplace your keys, or you can't remember where you put that important receipt or something like that. So one maybe practical tip here is designate a space for all your items. Have, whether it's a filing cabinet or a designated spot or a certain box that's well labeled. I think that's going to really help you. The more organized you are, you're not just going to have all this wasted energy and wasted memory power searching for things. So I hope that's a good practical tip there. It makes me just think about sometimes when I have my toolbox, and I'm terrible with this habit where I'll grab a tool out of my toolbox there, I'll use it, and I might just kind of leave that screwdriver down on my desk, and I don't put it back into the toolbox. And the next time I need that specific small screwdriver, I gotta waste all this energy searching for it. So that practically makes sense there. So I hope that was helpful. I've got so much more to share about brain health there, but again, with this series, I just want to make it helpful, practical, things that you can do. So I invite you to just pick one of these. Maybe it's just organize your space, clean up your desk, and or some of those nutritional support, whether it's microalgae, ginkgo biloba, goji berries. Consider adding that to your diet there, and then definitely find ways of just exercising your brain. I hope that was helpful. Again, I really enjoy sharing these health tips with you, and I will summarize all of this in a document on our blog post with this attached video. So feel free to share this with your friends there, and there will be a lot more to come around brain health, and just really boosting and optimizing your brain health and mental health. Thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to sharing more health tips with you soon. Take care. Bye bye.